Good morning. Welcome to the Racial Awareness and Cultural Equity Town Hall. My name is Carla Harris, and I'm the CEO and Managing Director of the People Institute. Today, we're going to start a public conversation that I hope will be like none other in this kind of forum. I say start because today's conversation is just the beginning of a series of sessions that will lead to an action plan and follow up. It's time to talk about being Black at work. It's time for companies, cities, organizations, and government employers to empower real conversations about race relations in the workplace. It's time to uncover and manage unconscious bias. It's time to listen attentively and be open to the perspective of others and learn what Black people have to offer. It's time to see color, because when you don't, you are missing a part of our wholeness. Black lives matter. And more than that, Black lives are strong, creative, forward-thinking, assertive, and bring legitimate, compelling, professional experience to the table.
When I think about the history of this nation, and it is important, again, to contextualize where we've been so we understand better where we are and we understand and know how we get there, wherever there is. 1619, a ship appeared on the coastal port of Virginia with 20 enslaved people. In the chat box, how many of you heard the narrative that they, whoever you believe they to be, went to Africa, stole slaves, and brought them back to America? In the chat box, yes, no? Anyone else hear that narrative besides me? Yes, yes. What if instead the narrative had been they, whomever you believe they to be, maybe they were colonizers, explorers, or pilgrims, but they went to Africa and they stole physicians and dancers and singers and grandmommies and granddaddies and botanists and daughters and sons and scientists and mothers and fathers and aunties and uncles? Is that a different story? In the chat box, yes, no? How is that different? What's different about that story? It humanizes. Might they, whomever you believe they to be, saw the humanness in those folks from Africa, might they not have enslaved them? 1790s, we were at the height of the slave trade in our nation. 1793, the Fugitive Slave Act. And what was important about that, it wasn't just to recapture runaway enslaved people, but it also penalized white people who dared be abolitionist. They were also subject to fines and persecution, further creating this racial divide that we see today. 1852, Harriet Beecher Stowe wrote Uncle Tom's Cabin, an anti-slavery novel. She was one of the most staunch abolitionists of that time. And in America, we are known to have progress, and we are also known to regress. 1915, W.E. Du Bois wrote the seminal work, The Negro. It was the first comprehensive history of African and African-derived people. It was acclaimed, it was widely read, and it was deeply influential. And at the same time, The Birth of a Nation, originally called The Klansman, a silent epic drama directed by D.W. Griffith, was screened at the White House. It's the first time that we saw African-American men as unintelligent, sexually aggressive beasts out to defile white women. And that narrative showed up just a few months ago in Central Park when Amy Cooper picked up her cell phone and she looked at Christian Cooper and she said, "I'm going to call the police and tell them an African-American man is terrorizing me." That narrative from 1915 played out in Central Park in 2020.
As I listened to the richness of that history, it's a history that we were not taught in school. It's a quote from Margaret Wheatley that I think really is appropriate for this occasion, and it states, "All social change begins with the conversation." The conversation that we want to share is one in which too often in our society, when we've had the occasion of having race discussions, we go into separate elevators. We go into separate rooms. For too long, the race conversation, we have toiled in what I call the superficiality and not really shared our true feelings. We've not shared perspectives that we've gained over our experiences in life, the paths that we have walked. And whenever we've discussed the issue of race, we've discussed it within our silo of people like us, and we've never truly shared our feelings with others. I posed the question that was asked by Professor Cornel West recently in an interview when he stated, "It takes courage to look in the mirror and to see past your reflection to who you really are when you take off the mask. When you're not performing the same old routines and social roles. It takes courage to ask, how did I become so well adjusted to injustice?"
A very important dialogue, and we talked about a couple of key steps that businesses can do to really diversify, and that's pulling from pools in communities that we don't necessarily look to when we're looking to diversify our staff. So going into areas like Fort Lauderdale, areas that have a larger African American population. Additionally, a zero tolerance policy for disrespect in the workplace, for off-color jokes, for off-color remarks.